Help support the LGBTQ+ community with a donation to the Trevor Project. Link in the description and pinned comment below. Atari presents V-17 Bomber! So, anyone ever see The Thing? You know, that cult classic horror flick about that alien who can shapeshift into other creatures? Scariest part about that is the paranoia that sets in. The realization that the crew can't trust anyone, because any one of them could be the creature. That's what makes shapeshifting such a frightening ability. The power to take on the appearance of anyone, meaning that trust, you know, one of the things that actually makes us human, suddenly becomes a deadly liability. Of course, in video games, that power takes on a whole other level of significance. So let me break down the criteria. I'm looking for full body transformation abilities, not simply a body part or two. Second, the power needs to be voluntary. It ain't useful if you can't control it. Third, copying abilities will count more than simply copying appearances. And simple disguises don't count. Gentlemen. So let's shift into 26 with the top 10 video game shapeshifters. It's game time! Okay, how long has it been since I talked about League of Legends? Wait, that long? Man, it's been ages since I last brought up League, and it has grown considerably since those days. With ever-expanding lore and a hit animated series on Netflix, I guess you could say that everything about League has gotten better, except League itself. But I'm not here to rant, so let's talk about a champion that came out after I left the game. Now, while there are a few champions with shapeshifting powers, Niku, the Curious Chameleon, stands out among them, both in versatility and personality. Niku comes from a tribe of Vestaya beastkin known as the Uvi-Kat. These chameleon-like beings had a strong connection to the spirit realm, and as such had a talent for sensing the shoma, or soul, of living beings. When an unknown disaster befell the Uvi-Kat, the elders sacrificed themselves so that the younglings, including Niku, could escape. Now, based on her experiences in the outside world, Niku hopes to find her kin and rebuild a new tribe. And she excels in blending in with the crowd. Her passive allows her to assume the form of any allied or neutral targetable creature or object on the map, be it another champion, a minion, or even a trap or ward. Being disguised also enhances her W, Shapesplitter, which creates clones to confuse the enemy. These clones can appear as though they're casting, even though only Niku herself actually casts. Finally, there's her ultimate, Pop Blossom, where she winds up, then, after knocking up the opponent, lands with a burst of energy. And if you use it while she's disguised, the AoE becomes hidden from enemies. It's a cool kit, but she's this low because she can't copy the skills of others, just their form. If she could copy abilities, then she'd be borderline broken. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was a game-changer for the franchise. Up until then, Castlevania had been get from point A to point B, whip everything in your way, and try not to let enemy patterns screw you over. But Symphony took the exploration platforming that Simon's Quest dabbled with and, you know, actually did it right. The slightly increased emphasis on story also further fleshed out several characters, including Dracula himself and his estranged Dhampir son Alucard. This was the first time that someone without some relationship to the Belmont clan took center stage, and Toru Hagihara and his team made sure that Alucard had a moveset that would help him navigate through the twisted corridors of his father's widower pad. After all, this was the game that put the Vania in Metroidvania. So aside from relics to give him enhanced abilities like double jumping and underwater survivability, Alucard gained abilities which tapped into his vampiric shapeshifting powers. As a cloud of mist, he could become momentarily intangible in order to slip through grates, and with further items can poison foes. In wolf form, he can make otherwise impossible leaps and can charge and bite at enemies. His most iconic transformation, his bat form, allows him to fly to great heights, and he can further strengthen this form with echolocation abilities and a fireball attack. And while Symphony is the main showcase of Alucard's shapeshifting powers, he has used them in other places. He assumed a giant form when testing Trevor in Dracula's Curse, and more notably, he's changed his appearance so that he can keep an eye on Soma. However, I can't put Alucard any higher, mainly because his prowess with weaponry and magic tends to overshadow his shapeshifting. But I guess being a creature of the night gives you a whole mess of advantages. Might as well take them while you can get them. Okay, so this year is apparently The Legend of Zelda's 40th anniversary. Huh, how about that? I suppose we'll get the first official trailer for the Zelda movie sometime soon. Maybe a remaster, I don't know. Anyways, one thing you gotta appreciate about this franchise is when it wasn't afraid to be ambitious. Majora's Mask is the kind of game that was, funny enough, ahead of its time, doing the whole isekai shit before it was beaten to death like a horse. Of course, instead of an OP skill, Link ends up forcibly shapeshifted into a scrub by a villain darker than even Ganon. Of course, it would be a creepy salesman who gives Link the keys to his new convertible powers, a song that transforms the suffering of others into masks, which then give Link brand spanking new forms and abilities. Being a flower-powered scrub lets Link glide from flowers, bounce across water, and fire magic bubbles from his mouth? Nose? I don't know. When Link obtains the Goron mask, he can wield super strength on par with the Megaton hammer and roll around like Sonic. Later, Link is entrusted with the Zora mask, which lets him transform into an underwater warrior, capable of launching fin cutters, swimming like a dolphin, and coating his body in a bioelectric barrier. Except this power was nerfed in the 3DS remake! I'm sorry, I'm still not quite over that. There are also a couple other transformation masks, like the Giant's Mask that lets Link go full Ultraman, even looks like Ultraman, and the Fierce Deity Mask, which is so OPAF that it's usable only in boss fights. Granted, there are other games where Link transforms, but Majora's Mask is the most prominent. However, in a similar vein to Alucard, and something I didn't mention earlier, is that the scope of Link's transformations is kinda limited. Still, if a song could turn our suffering into masks, I would not complain in the slightest. Skullgirls, the launch party that never ends. Until it did. Yeah, it doesn't get a lot of press nowadays, but I remember when this was one of the vanguards for indie fighting games. The Art Deco style, the back-to-basics tag team fighting system, and especially its world and lore that expanded greatly over time. And there was some really dark shit going on, even with the base cast of the game. Case in point, Double. One of the main antagonists of the game, you don't really get to know that much about it at first. Yes, I looked up the pronouns, Double's an it, despite its primary disguise being that of a nun. And appropriately enough, it uses religion as a cover for its evil activities. You see, Double is a servant of the game's overarching villains, the Trinity. You know, the ones who created the Skull Heart in the first place. As such, its duty is to advance the Trinity's wicked agenda by finding suitable Skullgirl candidates. A task which it goes about by using its shape-shifting powers to great effect, though this is mostly seen in later characters' stories. Two victims of Double's work were the mothers of Parasol and Squiggly, resulting in untold death and destruction. She was also responsible for turning the current Skullgirl, Marie, but she was a bit of a wild card. In battle, Double uses its shape-shifting abilities to morph its grotesque form into that of other characters to mimic their attacks. And not just specials, but even most of its normals involve transformations. Heck, its level 3 blockbuster move has it transforming into a majority of the original cast, plus a couple DLC characters for good measure. Fun fact, some of Double's moves consist of character attacks that missed the cut for the game, but some of those attacks ended up in the mobile game. And I genuinely don't know who plays the mobile game. Well, I guess it's a good thing that Double is a shapeshifter because its regular form is... ugh. Could be some commentary on religion, but that seems kinda on the nose. Okay, so this year is apparently Metroid's 40th anniversary. Huh, how about that? Not really expecting anything from this one, though. We just had Metroid Prime 4 released after what was apparently a roller coaster of a development cycle behind the scenes. Of course, I'm still surprised we never got remasters of Metroid Prime 2, and especially Prime 3. The climax of the Phazon trilogy was a bit more experimental, especially given that it was an earlier Wii title. But beyond the use of pointer controls, it was also one of the few games that felt more like space opera than space horror, partially due to Samus working with others. And you wonder why that's not a regular thing. When your first impression of Gandreda is seeing her looking like you can't exactly be blamed for having trust issues. For context, Gandrada is one of the bounty hunters hired to help fight against the Phazon corruption, and a bit of a professional rival to Samus. We don't know specifically where she's from, but her shape-shifting abilities are similar to the inhabitants of Jovia 12. Said abilities prove useful when the space pirates attack Norian, but leave it to Dark Samus to throw a space steroid wrench into everything. Later, the hunters are sent to various corrupted planets to take out Leviathan seeds, and surprise, surprise, Samus is the only one who doesn't go missing. Well, given what happened to Rundus and Gore, you probably know where this is going. On the pirate homeworld, you receive a distress signal from a G-Fed, whom you help, except...
It's a trap!
Yep, Gandrada is corrupted and more than ready to hurt you. While she does have attacks of her own, like shockwaves and grapples and all that, she uses her shapeshifting for a good portion of the fight. Early on, she'll pose as general grunt enemies, but as her health drops, she'll take on the form of your other former allies, and eventually even mimic Samus herself. Even Gandrada's battle theme seems to shapeshift, adapting bits of other themes throughout the series. It's a tense fight requiring you to be ready for anything, especially with the numerous forms Gandrada has at her disposal. With that kind of ability, it's no surprise she was on the Federation's shortlist. But her fate pretty much illustrates why Samus typically works alone. She can save the entire galaxy, no problem, but when it comes to comrades, something always goes wrong. Okay, so this year is apparently Pokemon's 30th anniversary. Huh, how about that? Unlike Metroid, however, there's probably plenty of plans for this one, given how Pokemon is basically everywhere. Maybe we'll even find out about Gen X this year. Well, we already know of at least one game that's coming out, and appropriately enough, it makes this next entry relevant. Ditto has always been one of those big mysteries of Pokemon. It's this pink or light purple blob of slime with beady little eyes and a smile that looks like it was drawn on with a Sharpie. So, what exactly is its deal? Is it a failed Mew clone? A primordial being containing the roots of all Pokemon DNA? Some kind of alien that has trouble getting through pantry doors? I don't f***ing know. While there are some Pokemon capable of transforming, none of them are quite like Ditto, since that's its raison d'etre. The only move it knows is Transform, which turns any battle into a mirror match. Right down to the moves, stats, gender, ability, with level and HP among the few exclusions. So basically,
Just a bit outside.
Of course, it now has the Imposter ability, which basically does the same damn thing, except didn't fight all those meme lords from a few years ago. Although, let's be honest, pretty much nobody uses Ditto in battle. They're most likely used to give you an egg. Heck, it was required to get the egg that hatches into Fione, and I still haven't let go of the fact that Fione doesn't evolve into a new Manaphy, but that's beside the point. That being said, however, some Ditto are better at transforming than others, and it's about Ditto's running gag. When Ditto appears in some spin-offs, like Pokemon Snap or Pokemon Sleep, no matter what form it takes, you'll see its face is the same. Even if it's disguised as a rock, you'll still see those beady little eyes and derpy smile. I guess that one episode of the anime was enough for Game Freak to turn it into a running punchline. Meanwhile, in Pokemon Go, it can be perfectly disguised as one of a select group of Pokemon, only revealing itself when you catch the darn thing. And coming up later this year, we have Pokemon Pokopia, which features a certain Ditto taking on the form of a human and still learning field techniques from other Pokemon. That does seem pretty interesting. So if a Ditto fell in love with a human, would it be like...
Wait, nope. All the way up.
Okay, so now that there's a new Shantae game in the works, it sounds like a good time to talk about her again. This half-genie girl is one of my favorite characters, and one that I have a very, very personal connection to. I was actually involved in a couple of her games, in case you're relatively new to this channel. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of shenanigans that Scuttletown's primary protector is going to find herself in this time, but rest assured, she's got the moves for any occasion. And when I say moves, I usually mean dance moves. Granted, she's also able to pick up some magical items, or even some stray pirate gear when the situation calls for it, but the main source of Shantae's power comes from her captivating performances. Those hips are for more than tips, you know. Through a variety of dances, Shantae can take on numerous animal forms to help her through any situation. Turning into a monkey lets her climb most walls to navigate dungeons. As an elephant, she can charge through walls and stomp on enemies. When there's crawling on webs and ceilings to be done, she can become your friendly neighborhood spider genie. And once you draw the harpy transformation, you'll be able to soar to brand new heights. Risky's Revenge also introduced a mermaid form for Shantae, allowing her to traverse underwater, since being a half genie means being half human, and that means she typically needs to breathe. Shantae did lose her genie powers in Pirate's Curse, but after getting them back, she got a transformation overload. Apart from new crab, bat, and mouse transformations, there were a few optional transformations as well, including a Dryad, a Blobfish, a Gem Jar, and even Sophia the Third from Blaster Master Zero. Yeah, remember when Shantae appeared as DLC in that game? Well, the pendulum swings both ways, and now Shantae's a tank! And what's more, there were a whole buttload of other transformations that were proposed, including a succubus, a pillbug, a tiger, a frilled lizard, and even a naga. Heck, in Seven Sirens you didn't even need to dance to transform. You just needed some support from your half-genie kin, and a little coin as proof. She could turn into a newt for climbing and dashing, a gastropod for drilling through sand, a tortoise for smashing into foes, a frog for swimming, and an octopus for double and triple jumping. This girl's a veritable one-woman menagerie. With so much versatility at her disposal, it's no wonder she's been able to keep Sequent Land from collapsing. And with that new game in the pipe, I'm sure they've got some new moves in store for her. They've already got her rocking those new twin tails. And now, could we get Shantae as a playable character in the next Smash? That would be a wish come true! I would like to propose a toast to this momentous occasion, as we're all gathered here in memoriam of our beloved Dragon Blood Prince. Not a day goes by that I don't think about Dragalia Lost just a little. Yeah, every story comes to an end and a mobile-based online game can't stay online forever. But we had something special here! The fanbase certainly hasn't forgotten. There's a reason I might retweet someone with Bondforge in their name on my Blue Sky feed. And of course, if we're going to talk about Dragalia Lost on a list about Shapeshifters, then of course that means I'm going to talk about Yuden. And holy shit, to say that the boy had it rough would be like saying that the Packers had a few injuries this past season. His royal dad got possessed by a demon and kidnapped his sister, most of his siblings turned out to be total a-holes, and said demon possessed the sister and straight up killed the dad, and that's just the first act! Yuden was basically a permanent passenger on the trauma train. But fortunately, he had some of the best friends a prince could ever ask for, both in terms of people, and more relevantly, in terms of dragons. Shapeshifting was a key gameplay mechanic in Dragalia Lost. It's also the special gift of Yuden's royal bloodline, dating back to his distant ancestor, the hero Alberius. Once a hero makes a pact with a dragon, they can assume that dragon's form in order to turn the tide of battle. During the course of the game's lifespan, a total of 133 different dragons were released, and each one granted you unique powers for the adventurers to which they were equipped. How it worked was that you filled up the dragon gauge as you battled, and once you had a stock, you could shapeshift and unleash your chosen dragon's full might. And these dragons were not lacking in variety. We had, of course, the 5 Great Worms, who were the dragons central to the story. We had dragons based on all kinds of mythology, such as Norse, Greek, Egyptian, Shinto. There were also dragons whose designs were... yeah, Nintendo and Cygames knew who they were marketing to. Honestly, the sources for these dragons were as varied as personas. Oh wait! Thanks to the Persona 5 event, you could draw Arsene as a dragon. That not enough for you? There was also a Monster Hunter crossover event where you could obtain Rathalos, Dread King Rathalos, or even Fatalis. Yeah, imagine being able to shapeshift into the Bringer of Calamity itself. And there were plenty of ways to obtain new dragons too. Aside from the obvious gotcha, there were events coming out at least once a month which gave you the chance to obtain new dragons, challenge quests to obtain the means to get some dragons, and some dragons were given out as gifts. So yeah, there was absolutely no shortage of forms for Yuden to take in his grand adventure. And yeah, this is also me hoping that Nintendo and Cygames could work together again for a follow-up. God damn it, not another one! They are on the list! On the list! When Capcom said they wanted to make Mega Man a core series back in December, my mental response was, press X to doubt. Yeah, we've got the Star Force collection coming at the tail end of March, and Udon's put out some banger comics, but it wasn't until the announcement of Mega Man Dual Override while I wasn't watching the Game Awards that I believed it. And with the Classic series coming back, that gives me hope that the X series will get a similar revival. It's time to give the boy his due! Perhaps the best parallel I can draw with Axel is with Silver the Hedgehog. Both characters have had the dubious distinction of making their debut in terrible games, but future games have given both of these characters a chance to truly shine. In Axel's case, his debut was the notorious Mega Man X7. Originally a member of the vigilante group Red Alert, he ran away when they started hurting innocents under the influence of you-know-who. Being the fanboy that he was, he thought that he could join up with the Maverick Hunters, but being a trigger-happy kid with guns doesn't exactly a hunter make. He had to work hard to gain the trust of X and Zero, and was only able to really earn his stripes by the time of X8, a game which further fleshed out Axel as a character by giving him and his abilities some background. As it so happens, Axel is the prototype of the new generation Reploids, a special type of Reploid possessing a special copy chip that allows them to change their form using other Reploids' DNA data. There's just one problem. The copy chips, apart from Axel's, contain the DNA of many Reploids, including Sigma, a fact that Lumine uses to his advantage, hiding behind Sigma while pulling the strings of the Jacob Project himself. Ironically, it's Axel who keeps the team anchored in the final battle against Lumine when the manipulative Fallen Angel trumpets his crap about evolution. And interestingly enough, Axel's shapeshifter ability, called A-Trans, evolved as his character did. Apart from his twin pistols, Axel has a special copy shot, and if he finishes off an enemy of similar size using it, they'll drop a DNA core which Axel can use to transform. In X7, this activated automatically and lasted until the meter ran out. It was cumbersome and inefficient, even if it did allow you to obtain some of the items. It was vastly improved in X8, however. The copy shot has a higher firing rate, you choose when to activate the transformation, and you can change back at will. And then there's Command Mission, where Axel has been recognized as an S-Class Hunter, and his A-Trans has been improved to match. Now his action trigger allows him to morph into nearly any boss you've beaten and use their attacks. And let's not forget Mega Man ZX Advent, where Axel's power has been inherited by Biometal Model A, which allows Ash or Gray to change into any of the pseudoroids they've beaten. And don't give me that Model Albert crap, they knew what they were doing! Of course, since Axel's ending in X8 was one big cliffhanger, his fate, to this day, remains unknown. But maybe since we're getting a full-on Mega Man X comic, maybe we can convince Capcom to continue the story someday? Please? I want to save the boy, damn it! And before we move on, here are a few honorable mentions. Neo Metal Sonic, Sonic Heroes. Sorry, but you'll never be the real Sonic. Kirby. Sadly, full-bodied transformations only happen in a few games. Armon Ritter, Sin and Punishment Star Successor. Here's hoping we get Wii on Nintendo Classic soon so more people can play this game. Gigas, World Heroes. Can we have T-1000? No, son, we have T-1000 at home. T-1000 at home. And from games I haven't played, Atreus, aka Loki, God of War Ragnarok. We only know a couple forms, but hey, it works. Morgan Yu, Prey 2017. The plot twist, though. Alex Mercer, Prototype. The plot twist, though. Nobody saves the world. No, seriously, that's actually their name. And let's see what the Arcade Nation has to say with this month's patron picks.
Dupless from Paper Mario The 1,000-Year Door is a really unique concept for a boss. He transforms into you halfway during the fight, and you don't even realize it until the battle's already over. And when you rematch him, you get to fight him as well as all your partners. Plus, he's an example of a complete jerk who's also extremely funny.
Primo on the PS2 is a woefully underrated game. But if there's one thing I recall having fun with, it's utilizing Protagonist's Gen-Taste transformations to progress through the four realms of Oblivion. Whether it's the ferocious Farai, the deep-dwelling Undine, the ethereal Wraith, or the fiery Jinn, there's a little something for everyone in her attempts at restoring balance.
We've seen how useful the power of shapeshifting is in the hands of heroes. We've also seen how dangerous that power is in the hands of villains. Such a versatile power can prove to be a game changer for those who know how to use it wisely. But if anyone wanted to truly be the master of morphing, they would have to track down the ultimate shapeshifting sorcerer and face him in mortal combat.
Your soul is mine.
I had to do quite a bit of shifting on this list as I was writing it, funny enough, but one thing that didn't change even once was the number one spot. It was always going to be Shang Tsung. One of the most iconic and sinister villains in all of fighting games, This malevolent mage is rarely out of the picture, and in the few times he isn't, he's definitely scheming something, just waiting for his chance to finish him. Originally a sorcerer from Earthrealm, he was cursed by the gods to consume the souls of others to survive. It's that power and that curse which gives Shang Tsung his shape-shifting powers, among other dark magic. In Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, he can change into other characters at will, copying all their moves, while in Mortal Kombat 2011 and MK11, he can briefly morph into his opponent with a certain move. And this shape-shifting ability is a perfect reflection of his duplicitous nature. He originally appears as the final boss of the first Mortal Kombat, having gained control of the eponymous tournament after Goro defeated the great Kung Lao, who, as it turned out, had previously defeated Shang Tsung in what would have been the Sorcerer's 10th tournament. That's kind of an important point, because if the forces of Outworld, whom Shang Tsung and Goro represented, were to win 10 tournaments in a row, Earthrealm's existence would have been forfeit to the ruler of Outworld, Shao Kahn. In fact, by the time of the first game, Goro had a 9-tournament win streak of his own, and had it not been for Liu Kang not only ending Goro's win streak, but defeating the constantly shape-shifting Shang Tsung in one final match, Earthrealm would have been cooked. Understandably, Shao was not happy about this, only sparing Shang Tsung's life after the conniving sorcerer proposed a plan to lure Earthrealm's warriors into Outworld under the pretense of a new tournament. Meanwhile, while the heroes were distracted, Shao Kahn would revive his dead Queen Sindel on Earth so that he could merge it with Outworld without no stinking tournament. But after that plan ended, Shang Tsung's scheming didn't. He would form a deadly alliance with another sorcerer, Quan Chi, and take out not only Shao Kahn, or rather a clone of him as it's later revealed, but also Liu Kang, on the hero's own turf no less. Things would change after Raiden rebooted the timeline after Armageddon, but the changes were slight at first. The second tournament was accepted by Raiden and the Elder Gods, and Shang Tsung would suffer his first death, only to be foolishly revived by Ermac in MKX. Then, in Mortal Kombat 11, it's revealed that he designed the crown of the Titan Kronika, and is one of the only beings who can control it properly, leading him to play everyone in order to retrieve it, leading to one final battle with his newly deified nemesis, Liu Kang. In the new timeline of Mortal Kombat 1, it seems as though Liu Kang won that fight, creating a new era where everyone, including Shang Tsung, is reimagined. But as it turns out, that battle splintered the timeline, creating a whole damn multiverse, and now everything is canon! So Titan Shang Tsung, disguised as Kronika and assuming the name Damashi, empowered and manipulated both his counterpart and the new Quan Chi in order to recreate the Dragon Army so that he can absorb all the new timelines. That's right, Shang Tsung literally played himself! And he's so powerful by now that it takes Liu Kang gathering a multiversal team of combatants to finally put him down for good. And even then, the new Shang Tsung is still alive, so he probably has some scheme in mind as well. I mean, what more can I say? He's powerful, he's cunning, and he will deceive anyone to achieve his goal. He is easily one of the most dangerous sorcerers in video games, and without question, gaming's greatest shapeshifter. Have a nice day. You know what's really funny? Back in 1995, Cary-Hiro Yuki Tagawa was carrying the Mortal Kombat movie as Shang Tsung. In fact, he was so good in the role that WB and NetherRealm Studios brought him back for MK11. And he was the template for Alan Lee when he took over the role in MK1. Between him and Raul Julia's performance as Bison in the Street Fighter movie, the Doofenshmirtz meme remains evergreen. I'm the Quarter Guy, and until next time, the arcade is closed.
Next time you need to be here, or else.
Hey there everyone, QG here. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, hype, leave a comment, and share the video around. Feel free to check me out on Blue Sky and my live streams on Twitch. If you want to help my channel out, you can become a channel member or support me on Patreon. And don't forget about my campaign to support the Trevor Project. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time!